All right, we're back. What's up, party people? My name is Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. I've been away for almost, I don't know, 2 weeks, visiting my family. Great time off. We're back at it. I've got a really interesting guest to kick it off. I've got a gentleman by the name of Mark Barber. He's the co-founder and CEO of Earmark. It's an AI workspace that turns a live conversation into finished work. So I'm guessing like you're doing your meeting, and before you even done the meeting, your work is done for you, which is super next level, fun, interesting. Mark, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going, Sunny? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on here. Yeah, as we just kind of just get the stream going here, I was gonna ask you. So, I mean, yeah, tell me about this company, this Earmark. Like, what is it? We'll keep it kind of short now. Like I said, we'll get back to it and go deeper into
Sure.
it. But just to kick it off, like, tell us what Earmark is.
Yeah, so Earmark is a productivity suite where the work completes itself. So what Earmark does is it listens to your meetings and in real time turns what's said into finished work. Things like requirements, documents, tickets, updates, and next steps, unlike generic AI meeting tools. So product teams can move forward without all the manual follow-up.
That's super fascinating. I would normally move on to my like normal questions, but I got to ask a few more questions.
Sure, go for it.
Uh, that is really, really smart, right? Obviously, that's very smart, and especially in this AI era. Can you double click on the idea a little bit more? Like, because like yeah, why isn't that possible already? Like I'm thinking granola plus Claude, or I don't know, sprinkle in some harness or something. But like, or is that not your customer base? Are you going for like the corporates? Like, what am I missing here? Like, because I'm sure a lot of people are scrambling to figure out some sort of workflow, right, to do just that.
Sure.
But I feel like you've leaned in hard. So yeah, help us unpack it a bit.
Yeah, so I think unlike generic meeting tools, right, or generic AI note takers, what Earmark tries to do is basically solve work for product engineering teams in a very deep and thoughtful way. The automations that they need are a lot more elaborate. One way to think about it is, when you think about a deliverable that you get out of a generic meeting tool, it might be like an AI summary, right? And the summary, most people don't actually consume them, right? But they feel really good that something played scribe. AI notes are useful to you, like individually, but they really can't be leveraged downstream like easily. You'll typically have to take them, resynthesize them, use a local agent like Claude to generate the deliverables. You're usually doing it after a meeting, right, or a set of meetings. The difference between our solution and those solutions, in addition to being very product and engineering specific, is it does everything in real time, right? You actually don't do things in post. The whole concept of the service is like just reduction of cycle time. Can I actually complete the deliverable during the conversation, like say a half hour increment or an hour increment, versus doing it afterwards? And for like product managers, the reason why it's really important, and delivery teams is that if engineering is moving 5 to 10 times faster, with AI, all the other disciplines that support engineering has to keep up, right? And the surface area for those people is largely in conversation, right? They're talking to customers, they're talking to delivery teams, right? There's the most context exists in voice. So what we're doing is we're taking that voice and creating real work from it. So the easiest way to differentiate the service is real work versus nodes, right?
So smart. I love it, man. So I guess what were you doing before Earmark, and what did that chapter teach you?
Yeah, so before Earmark, my co-founder and I were at a company called ProductPlan, which was a SaaS platform for product managers. And we did that for 6 years. Before that, we ran engineering at a company called MindBody, which is a large-scaled enterprise SaaS platform for wellness businesses. And what we learned from both experiences was, I think in the MindBody case, where I had, like over 300 reports, the amount of time that we spent in meetings and the lack of value that was created from those meetings, from the alignment of executives to your peers, right, individual contributors, then multiple delivery teams kind of layered on top, the coordination overhead that was required from those, context loss, where you make a set of decisions, you try to get your deliverable spun up, you're on to the next meeting, right? So we kind of lived sort of this high context shift state of nature where it was just really hard to get anything done because we were in meetings all the time. So that's what we learned at MindBody. And then at ProductPlan, we built for product managers for 6 years, right? And they're definitely our ideal customer profile because they have, I would argue, probably the most challenging roles in modern product work, because they're, they have to, every 30 minutes is different contextually. Every audience is different for every one of every 30 minutes. And then the deliverables that each audience requires is also different. And then based on the discipline that they're talking to, those artifacts require a different level of fidelity, right? And they're just, like just rapid fire all the time. So we're really passionate about serving that audience.
So when did you first realize that meetings were this like kind of broken workflow? Like was there like a day or something where you guys were just looking at each other like this really doesn't work? Because I think most people have that feeling, right? But how do you
Yeah.
yeah.
And we always knew it like innately, that like it's just a low value activity. The thing that's really interesting for our customers, right, is that they're in these scaled enterprise SaaS companies. There's just so much complexity all the time. We hear stories from them all the time, and the way that like we experienced it. I think the thing that for a lot of us is that we just think we're powerless. It's like, here's the State of the Union. You're going to have to do these rituals. You're going to have to do all the coordination overhead. You're going to have to do all this work. And for us, I think the epiphany moment was like, especially with like just modern LLMs and generative AI today, like, can we essentially take the drudgery, right, like out of these roles? Because again, they're so high demand, right? The deliverables, the time spent. Can we just help people like us, with the tool that we've always wanted?
Interesting. And then I guess how do you go from, okay, this is a pain that we see that's like obvious, right? To, this is kind of like the right company for you to start now.
Yeah, I think for us, we knew we wanted to be in a domain space that served people like us, kind of going back to the idea of like a tool for people, like for ourselves. That's one thing. It's a domain that we understood really well because we know the ICP. We're the ICP ourselves, so that kind of gave us, I think, an advantage in terms of the space. We came from these highly complex enterprise companies, and then ProductPlan, our last company, was bootstrapped. So we kind of went through, a bootstrapped acquisition event, like in that company, so we felt that we knew the type of playbook we wanted to follow, whether it was like venture backed, or bootstrapped. And then I think for us, we've always wanted to do something on our own. My co-founder and I, we worked through 4 companies with each other. And we've always had this thread of like, we should start this, and we would conceptualize ideas, and sometimes they would we would sort of manifest it to an MVP, and kind of put it aside. But when our last company sold in 2023, that was like the opportunity for us to really go jump and do it ourselves. And we kind of joke today that like if we started this company now, we'd probably be screwed, because we're basically 2 years in, into the idea maze, and thousands of customer and prospect conversations, 7 major iterations of the solution, right? So we feel like from a wave perspective, we're like just in time, kind of based on the convergence of events, right? That like people, they know how to leverage these tools now. Everyone's trying to instrument workflows. The market's ready, right? There's an appetite for AI tooling. And I think with the success of services like Granola, right, like people also understand like how voice AI can be leveraged.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like Superman over here, with some of these tools, right? It's incredible, like what I'm able to do on a given day versus like even 2-3 months ago. It's moving at light speed. So I guess, but like you said, when you guys made this jump, it was maybe not so obvious, right? So I guess what felt most risky when you made that jump?
Yeah, I think for us, the most risky thing is we're both older founders, so we have families. That was one thing, right? Like this idea of like, I call it just getting that regular paycheck, right? The stability of a normal gig. The other piece that seemed like a risk was we actually started our first solution. I'll kind of go back to the very beginning. was actually real-time feedback and speech coaching for product and engineering leaders. And the first solution that we came up with was actually a Vision Pro product, right? So we spent months, in Cupertino with pre-release Vision Pro devices. And the concept was like an immersive AR/VR environment where you could model the conference room you had to pitch in, as an example, right? Or maybe an auditorium or whatever else. And you would have your Google Slides and you'd have real-time feedback. It would prompt you to breathe, or slow down or enunciate, and then provide a post feedback analysis in terms of how your pitch went. So that was our first solution, right? We're like, we're going to build for the Vision Pro, and obviously the Vision Pro TAM didn't materialize. And then at that point, we're like, okay, like how do we take the same ICP, serve them, but then serve them through a more accessible form, right? And that kind of took us down the web route, right? So we built a web application with a lot of the same real-time concepts, which was about equipping, product and engineering leaders just in time, just in need, right? Like, as they're going through, their meetings. And then that evolved to, can we actually deliver real work, like as the models started to mature? And that took us down a path of like, okay, well, automation of work concepts. So, beyond notes, which kind of goes back to the beginning.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. That's super interesting. So your like kind of counterintuitive take is that the best AI essentially disappears into the workflow, right? Invisible reliability over like this kind of demo magic, right? So why does invisibility win, and where's this proof in your own data?
Yeah, I think invisibility wins based on how, like, we think about just AI adoption in general, and kind of back to what you're saying around, folks like instrumenting or scaffolding, maybe a local agent workflow, right, relative to a Zoom, transcript or whatever they're sort of stringing together. We see a lot of awesome experimentation out there where people are basically scaffolding these workflows, and they're these DIY workflows on their own, like as enthusiasts. But what we see in the marketplace is that people actually spend more time basically nurturing or supporting these DIY workflows, and they become very, very brittle, right? It could be maybe it's like prompt rot, where a new model is released, right? Then all of a sudden their scaffolding doesn't work, or a new local agent is released and they have to switch from like Cloud Code to Codex, as an example. So for us, we wanted to like take those solutions like out of the mix altogether, and just enable a solution that worked extraordinarily, just very reliably. So obviously, since it's voice and since it's mission critical in terms of deliverables, the availability has to be amazing, right? Like our uptime is amazing. It has to be resilient. There can't be any latency from the time that these transcripts are ingested to when these artifacts are created in real time. The real-time assistance of it has to be very, very low latency. And we also wanted very easy engagement mechanisms. So if you start a meeting, for instance, it's like a one-click action, right? It'll launch a Zoom window, Meets window, Teams window. So it's agnostic of any meeting platform, and also works face-to-face, which kind of also gets it out of the way. You don't have to select or have optionality or have a meeting bot join a call. And a huge part of all this is just make it work reliably, right? And it'll do a lot of things these DIY, it'll support a lot of the things that DIY workflows offer, but it does it in a way that an enterprise can consume it, right? And is easy to understand, and people can get value in very short order.
Super smart, man. I mean, it's just like the easiest, simplest things, right? Not the easiest, but like, I mean, to pull it off, I'm sure is quite a feat. But in terms of, it's such a big problem, and be able to step into that void is awesome. So I guess every meeting node tool promises to save time, right? And most get ignored by, I would say, I don't know, week 2 or week 3.
Sure.
Like, what makes a PM actually trust Earmark to ship, like a ticket without kind of like babysitting it?
Yeah, so for our users, like we're big fans of like the Superhuman actually popularized this product market fit framework, where and there's this old question that's part of the framework where it's like, how would you feel if the solution went away tomorrow? Over 50% of our users would be super bummed, like if it went away tomorrow. That's like one piece. We have qualitative and quantitative surveys that go out all the time. Most PMs report back to us that they save about 5 hours a week on average, right, in aggregate data. So it's not us like coming up with like a magic number, based on the amount of artifacts they create. It's user reported. So we know that there's time savings. From an engagement perspective, our DAU to MAU ratio is 40%, which is kind of consumer class, to the point where I think like WhatsApp is like 50%, right? So the goal for us as a service has always been daily and essential use, and anything short of that, we're kind of missing the mark, right? So we see in the data like the trust patterns, right? Like they use it, they get value from it in very short order, and then it becomes a habit. So one of the things that we're also very keen on is building habits or loops in the product that kind of create value and delivery and stickiness in very, very short order. Since the solution is real time, and the fact that you can like prompt a meeting like while you're having it, create an artifact while you're having it, go to an old meeting, create a new artifact from an old meeting while you're having it, or retrieval of any fact at any point in time, gives it a stickiness that we didn't anticipate. And I think to your first question around trust, right? Like, why would they trust our solution versus something else? I think that they can see the quality, like in the solution in terms of like the low latency, the frame rate in terms of how the experience is delivered, the availability piece plus the value piece. But at the same time, Sunny, it's a very it's kind of it's a brittle line, right? Like, but the burden of proof for us is we have to be exceptional in a crowded space in order to build that trust, and we try to do it in every way we can through the product experience and everything that surrounds it.
You took a product plan, through an exit in, an arguably kind of like brutal market, right? Like, and I think I don't know, I assume distribution was something that you guys seem to have gotten right really well. So can you talk about like how you win the distribution game?
Yeah. So for us, I think like all AI founders, we're working through it, trying to figure it out in the most resourceful way we can. I mean, you think about founder-led selling in order for a path to PMF, like that's what we do primarily. So a lot of it's cold LinkedIn outbound. Our target, and if you sort of the anatomy of a deal for us might be, we get 1 or 2 PMs in a large organization using the tool. They sell it to their director in terms of doing a larger group evaluation. That basically enables a pilot that might be like 30 days in duration. Then what we do is we try to stage like legal and procurement and security, like as that conversation is progressing or the eval's progressing. And then what we do is we actually define very clear success criteria in partnership with our prospect, where it's like, how much time do you want to save a week, or do you anticipate saving a week? How do you feel about the solution? Whatever those measures are. We get to the end of the evaluation, then we have like a quantitative, qualitative dump, with a full report of how the engagement went. And then what that does is it enables a go, no-go decision for them. The good thing for us is it usually ends up as a go, situation, which is awesome. So the product is doing what it's supposed to do in the environment. And that's kind of like our go-to-market now, just traditional. From a content perspective, we're trying to get much more creative around, how to engage, like how to create social content that's compelling, that shows a solution in short order, both in short form video, all the way to, written content. But a lot of it for us is just like it's just getting you're just competent, right? Like in every single channel, right? And a lot of that's just reps. I think like all founders, like if you're not a social media expert, as an example, right? Like you have to develop competency in short order, right? So we're just doing the work to get good at every channel we can.
Makes a lot of sense. So you run locally, right? And they're essentially botless. Yeah. How much of your enterprise pipeline is one, on that architecture versus, the output quality?
Yeah, it's actually a little bit of both. So the architecture helps. So botless. I think there's this macro trend in the market where people are rejecting meeting bots because people are sort of tired of going into a meeting and then having more Firefly bots or Fathom bots than attendees. So it's become this anti-pattern, right? It's almost like bad manners, which is really good for a product like ours, right? So people want a botless sort of sensibility in the product. The other thing, though, that we provide is the ability for enterprises to opt out of storage altogether. So we have a no training policy by default. We have no retention policies or training policies with any of our sub-processors. And then the app can be ephemeral. So you can actually turn off storage altogether, have private meetings. There's no other voice AI tools that do this. So those are really important aspects to the solution and what makes it easy for us to sell into health tech and fintech as an example. And then from a local agent perspective, and since it's agnostic of any meeting platform, all transcripts and artifacts are stored locally as Markdown, which makes it very local agent friendly, which is something else that no other voice AI tool does. And most of our customers are becoming Claude adopters, right? And what we're seeing is this cool intersection of cloud adoption relative to a solution like ours, right? Where people still want to consume that context. They still have that surface area of meetings, but the providers like Zoom, for instance, right? You might have an MCP with Zoom, but what's limited there is you have 3 different meeting platforms you use every week, right? You're gonna have Teams calls, you're gonna have face-to-face conversations, so they almost need an agnostic layer of all those things to basically help their local agents out, which has been really helpful for us.
Very interesting. So you guys got inference from $70 a meeting to under a buck, is it? And so how much of building an AI company right now is quietly a cost engineering game?
It's a huge part of it. I think for us, the way that we've approached the company from the very beginning is, we kind of want frontier models, right? We want to be at the edge in terms of where we think the models are going. So what we'll do is we'll actually absorb, a lot of that cost early on, before, kind of like, what's the term, skating to the puck, so trying to build things in advance of where they end up becoming, and then where the cost models become much more tenable. But what's really cool too is that we're multi-agent in terms of setup. So let's say if we wanted to map a specific artifact to a particular model, like we can do that in the background. So that's really helpful. If we need to control costs, we could always go with a cheaper model. There's things in the UI or the experience that we can do to kind of throttle things down if we get to a point where things are untenable. So to kind of sum it up, we'll always kind of stretch, but we know that there's really sensible levers in the architecture that enable us to control costs in a way that won't get us in trouble as a business.
That's really interesting. So I guess my question is when the meeting itself produces the ticket, the spec, and the update, what does a product team stop doing, and what kind of new job or function does the human move up to?
Yeah, for our customer, Sunny, I think the easiest way to think about it is they're like a modern product manager is so beholden to internal teams. We think about it's almost like proximity bias, where I'm going to index on my team the most because I know they need the most support. So I'm going to be attentive. I'm going to create all the deliverables for them, all the artifacts for them. I want to be really short in my cycle time. So what they end up doing, just again by virtue of being close, that's where all the time goes. And that's where most of the deliverables go, or the time goes. But if you don't have to worry about a huge portion of those things to kind of keep your teams fed and running, what that does is it enables the unlock of people doing what they got into product management for in the first place, right? Which is, I want a vision cast, right? I want to tell a compelling narrative, right? I want to do a really, really good job in my go-to-market. I want to be strategic. I want to be proactive. I don't want to be reactive all the time at the mercy of events. And I think that's true for a lot of roles that are in meetings a lot of the time, where it's the idea of being strategic is a luxury. It's the one thing that might happen every few weeks because your delivery team's sick, or it's just so rare to have time to do that classification work. And that's our goal, right? Is something we always wish we had, when we were in those environments. So can the tool essentially create capacity to do the things that people want to do, right? And the things that actually are the highest value or highest leverage activities.
I love it, man. This is so interesting. Well, you know what, Mark, where do people learn more about you guys? And maybe leave us with like, what does the meeting, I don't know, 5 years from now look like? Like, is it just Neuralink? We just think of it or something? I mean, no, I'm kidding. But like, yeah, where are we going from here? I mean, but it's brilliant. I love what you're doing because like I've worked for bigger companies too, and like the bigger the company, the more meetings there are, and everyone knows it's like a meme almost that like meetings are like a complete waste of time, yet for some reason everyone feels the need to sit there for an hour just because one guy decided 3 weeks ago that he would make this. It's pretty bizarre, but to take that, you know, counterproductive environment and turn it into one of like absolute, like, you know, creativity, because I assume being able to see the output in real time also collapses feedback loops, and you're able to like literally in that meeting do what would have taken like 3 months to do perhaps, right? Because you've got the prototype right there and you can tweak it. And anyways, so I think it's genius what you guys are doing and leaning into meetings for PMs. That's quite smart, man. I love it. Yeah, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I think the big thing for us is 5 years from now. I think the idea of a meeting not generating work, like real work, will be an anathema. I think that the future of work, it is inevitable, right? That you will walk out of a conversation and your deliverables will be created. That is just the way it's going to be, right? Whether or not we address this or do this or somebody else. So convinced. It's just the way it's
Love
going to
it.
be, right?
Cool.
And then where people can find us, www.tryearmark.com. We're on Twitter as earmark_AI. And you can contact me anytime, through any of those channels.
Cool. Are you on LinkedIn as well, Mark?
And on LinkedIn as well. Yeah,
Okay,
Mark
cool.
here. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. Well, cool. With that, I'll land this plane. Just hang back for 1 minute, Mark. Thank you all for tuning in.